Here's Aaron, Darren said, slapping a hand on my shoulder like we were old buddies. He just stands around and makes sure the planes don't fall out of the sky. The new hire laughed politely. I gave a short chuckle too, even though inside I was fuming. What I was actually doing that morning was tracing a fuel discrepancy on our San Juan to Fort Lauderdale run, a 300-pound difference on paper versus reality. That's not background noise. That's how planes end up ditching over the Gulf. My name's Aaron Wells. I'm 32. I live in Atlanta, and I worked for JetBridge Logistics, a mid-sized cargo airline trying hard to look like a Silicon Valley startup. Open layout, free energy drinks, everyone in hoodies talking in acronyms like they invented flight. But under all that, boys' club politics, sloppy processes, and people like me cleaning up the mess behind the curtain. Quick note, before we start, how's your day going and where are you joining from? I was hired as a flight systems analyst. Sounds impressive. But what it really meant was being the human buffer between operations chaos and federal fines. Routing logic, manifest compliance, safety protocols, I handled it all. And when someone else screwed up, it was my job to quietly fix it before anyone outside noticed. Nobody gave a damn when I caught things early. No credit, no backup. But if something got missed, suddenly I was the only name in the email chain. Darren, my boss, director of ops, played the easygoing genius in meetings, but behind closed doors, he pushed blame like it was his job. Maybe it was. That or flirting with one of the dispatchers and talking up his time at Delta, like he hadn't been booted off a project team for cause. I didn't fit in. I knew it. I wasn't there to throw back beers or slap whiteboards and talk about synergies. I came in, put my headphones on, and actually worked. Most days I'd be running 6 to 8 compliance checks by noon, cross-referencing fuel burn with expected routing altitudes, then tracking system flags for anything that didn't match aircraft config data. Meanwhile, Darren would swing by my desk mid-call, lean in, and say, "How's my watchdog doing?" Every time, I'd just smile and say, "Clean so far." Then go right back to plugging holes they didn't even know existed. They treated me like background noise. But I kept the damn system standing, and I had the audit logs to prove it. I sat at my usual spot, second row from the wall, back to the dispatch pit. Headphones in, not for music, just white noise. If I didn't drown out the nonsense, I couldn't focus. The data feeds rolled in overnight, and my first pass was always the same. Check routing logs, match scheduled departure weights against filed manifests, scan for stale aircraft position reports. I had a 30-second script I built to highlight deltas above 100 pounds. That morning, 12 popped. 8 of them were tagged to the Caribbean routes. That wasn't normal. I opened the payload spread, started digging through the B737 fleet logs. Same thing each time. The cargo manifest weight was under by anywhere from 150 to 300 pounds. I rechecked the metrics on the scan tools. Not a bad push. Not duplicate packets. These were full clearances filed wrong. I walked straight to Darren's desk. He was drinking one of those canned cold brews and half watching something on his phone. Got a trend on the Caribbean runs, weight mismatches. Could be a mislabeling issue with the hub teams. He didn't even look up. Probably just normal fluctuation. Don't turn it into a whole project. That's not how fluctuation works. Don't worry about it, Aaron. Focus on the next cycle. So I flagged it manually, updated my audit tool with a red line entry, and filed it under Q2-CBW, Caribbean Weight Anomalies. No one asked. No one checked. But the logs were there now. A few days later, I pitched a change in the weekly sync. We were having more route diversions lately, usually weather, but sometimes it was fuel limits. I'd been modeling a route redundancy matrix, basically a logic branch that suggested alternates in real time when main corridors started to bottleneck. Low cost, low friction, fast to implement. I laid it out clean. Numbers, risk, upside. Darren leaned back, sucked his teeth, and said, "I get it, but this feels like bureaucratic overkill. Let's not add friction for the sake of friction." Nobody said a word. I closed the deck and went back to my desk. Logged the rejection in a doc I kept under a folder called Quiet Efforts. Not for revenge, just insurance. I'd seen too many people thrown under the bus around here. The guy before me vanished after a compliance gap that wasn't even his. Paper trail mattered. That night I stayed late. I was watching log timelines when I caught something off. A Gulfstream out of Tampa had a maintenance check logged the night before departure. System showed a technician sign-off, routine post-flight inspection. But the tech ID, it was blank. No name, no user trace. Just system generated. I checked again. Same thing on the next aircraft. And the next. I pulled every maintenance approval record for that week and ran a filter. Show all entries with technician ID fields left null or tagged auto. 37 entries came up. That didn't happen by accident. Someone had either built a script to auto-close tickets or the system was being spoofed. Either way, those planes flew with inspections marked complete. But nobody had touched them. I took screenshots of the records, dumped the raw logs into my backup cache, and copied the path into the folder. Next morning, I brought it up. There's a bunch of inspection logs missing tech IDs, I said, standing just inside Darren's office. He didn't look away from his monitor. Might just be the logging backend acting up. They're pushing a patch this week. Then we should hold any affected aircraft until the patch is confirmed. He finally looked at me. That's not necessary. If it was a real issue, maintenance would have flagged it. They didn't. That's my point. I said, drop it, Aaron. Let tech handle the backend stuff. I walked out, shut the door soft, and didn't say another word. But I added a new section to the folder. Tag, ghost logs. The next time it happened, I wasn't even looking for it. I was running a routine check on the flight scheduling backend, basically just verifying that aircraft marked green for flight clearance were actually compliant. Usually it was boring, but that day, one entry stuck out. A 757 flagged red for deferred maintenance had been cleared for dispatch anyway. I double-checked the logs. The warning flag was logged at 3:02 a.m. The flight was scheduled at 3:06, 4 minutes later. The system should have blocked it. Instead, it showed cleared, greenlit, no restrictions. I pulled the server response packet, saw it plain as day. The flag fired, but the backend timed out mid-validation. The system skipped the alert like it never happened. I ran a local test on our staging instance, triggered the flag, killed my connection for 10 seconds, came back online. The dispatch button unlocked. I could greenlight an aircraft with a grounding issue just by catching the server in a delay window. My stomach dropped. I did it again. Same result. I started recording. Screen share on, cursor slow, clicked override, waited for timeout, reconnected, scheduled a flight that should have been hard blocked, took less than 60 seconds. I dumped the video into our ticketing system, labeled it critical, compliance override via network fault, and tagged 2 system leads, Ivan, our backend guy, and Sarah, who handled DevSecOps. Escalated it direct to Darren's inbox, wrote one line, confirm receipt. This breach is reproducible. No reply. 15 hours later, nothing. No acknowledgement from Darren, not even a Slack ping from Ivan or Sarah. I sent a follow-up, flagged it high priority, attached the FAA compliance clause it violated, Section 135.427A. Scheduled maintenance and pre-flight safety checks may not be bypassed by system behavior. 10 minutes later, Darren finally pinged me an internal chat. Not a call, not an email. A goddamn Slack message. You're making this a thing when it's nothing. Let's not overheat the cabin. I stared at it for a full minute. Nothing? I had hard proof a system flaw let people schedule flights without maintenance clearance. I had the logs, the video, the server call breakdown. We weren't talking about a minor glitch. We were talking about a gap wide enough for an accident. I typed 3 words, then deleted them. Then I opened my terminal, copied every related log, packet trace, and test result into a new folder, and labeled it /Q3_flight clearance exploit. Darren didn't want a paper trail, so I built one anyway. I didn't tell anyone else, not yet. Ivan and Sarah stayed silent, maybe scared, maybe told to be. Either way, the exposure sat there, untouched, still live. I went back to the live system and ran the test one more time, just to be sure. Same result, same silence. Someone was going to fly a broken aircraft, and this place was going to let it happen. I took a screenshot of Darren's Slack message, that smug line about not overheating the cabin, dumped it into a new encrypted folder, and named it Q3_exposure. Everything went in. The video demo, my flag ticket, server logs, packet traces, Slack threads, compliance citations. I timestamped every file manually, then backed up the whole folder to a drive I'd set up months ago. AES 256 encrypted double authenticated offsite server. No one else had the key. Then I opened the internal regulatory log system. There was a way to submit a compliance report without routing it to a manager. Just a quiet backdoor for whistle-level stuff. No auto alerts, no notifications. But it logged the submission with a UID trace. I filled it out line by line. System flaw, exploit confirmed, evidence attached, suggested fix, timeline, impact scope. When I hit submit, it didn't feel dramatic. It just felt like something that should have been done a week ago. I didn't say a word to Darren, didn't look at him in meetings. He stopped calling on me anyway. One afternoon in the hangar while I was checking a telemetry sync, Leo, one of the older mechanics, pulled me aside behind a stacked parts bin. "You didn't hear this from me," he said, voice low. "But last year we had a QA guy flag something in the auto trim code. A month later, he was reorganized to night shift warehouse dispatch. Never saw him again." I nodded slowly. Leo raised his eyebrows. "You sure you want to play that game?" "Let them try," I said, and walked off. That night, I didn't go home. I stayed in the office 2 extra hours triple-checking everything, made sure my internal submission was traceable by audit, verified the UID logs, tested my offsite backups, resynced folder hashes. If they tried to bury it, they'd leave digital fingerprints all over the place. 2 days later, things shifted. I wasn't copied on any comms about the Q4 maintenance optimization project, a system I helped design from scratch. The shared doc permissions were changed. I was locked out. Then came the cherry on top. Darren promoted this kid named Alex, fresh out of school, 2 months on the team, to co-lead on routing compliance. Alex was loud, eager, always quick to agree with whatever Darren said in meetings. Half his ideas were just warmed-over versions of things I'd pitched and gotten shut down for. I didn't say anything. Alex got an official company-wide email. Darren called him, "A fresh perspective we really need during this scale-up phase." I clicked the message closed. I wasn't angry, just done playing quiet. In meetings, I kept my mic off. Darren would ramble about lean routing initiatives and cloud-integrated dispatch logic, while Alex nodded like a bobblehead. Sometimes he'd read straight off materials I had written. No one noticed, no one cared. I kept updating the Q3_exposure folder daily. New logs, new changes, a full record of the silence. If they wanted to erase me, they'd have to do it with the lights on. The next Monday, I clicked into the morning stand-up and realized I was a ghost. No invite, no agenda, no comms. The Zoom room filled up with faces I used to brief weekly. Sarah, Ivan, ops leads, and now Alex front and center like he ran the place. Darren opened with, "Thanks everyone. Big improvement lately. Things are finally running smooth." I sat there in silence, camera off, watching Alex present a flow chart I'd drawn 6 weeks ago. Line for line, my logic. No one blinked. Next day, I checked the project channels. My access was stripped. FAA readiness briefing notes? Gone. Slack invite removed. Even the weekly safety call I ran got renamed and rehosted under Alex's calendar. No one said a word to me. No notice. No explanation. Just clean removal. I didn't react. I downloaded my own backups and started checking the timelines. That's when I saw the DoD logo. There'd been quiet prep happening for weeks. Some hush-hush bid to land a Department of Defense logistics contract. Everyone was pushing for it. All-hands meetings, new security audits, compliance rush reviews. I opened the bid packet, scanned the scope. Stopped cold on a line buried under Section 12, Clause 4C. All flight scheduling platforms must feature hard block logic preventing deployment of aircraft with active safety flags. Without exception or override, I read it twice. Then a third time. The flaw I documented, the one still sitting in the system, wasn't just a bad look now. It was a full-on violation of federal flight safety policy, a breach. If anyone at the DoD saw it, the contract would be dead on arrival. And the system still wasn't patched. I went straight to my terminal, ran a current build scan. Same exploit, same timeout window, still wide open. That afternoon, I walked into the smaller ops hangar to grab my tablet, and there he was, Alex in the corner with one of the government guys. Full dress shirt, shiny shoes, pointing at a laptop like he built the whole thing. I leaned in. He was demoing the dispatch tool, the same one I'd tested with the same scheduling backend. I got closer. The browser flashed for a second and I froze. It was logged in under my user credentials. My name, my permissions, my digital ID. I turned, walked straight to my desk, and launched a fresh exploit test. Disconnected network mid-validation, reconnected after 15 seconds, scheduled the blocked flight. It cleared. Still broken. Still live. They were using my access to show off a system that violated federal safety code to a government agency with my name on it. I didn't punch a wall, didn't shout. I copied the new logs, recorded the exploit again, added it to Q3 underscore exposure, and labeled it govdemo underscore breach timestamp 1442 user trace, a Wells, let them bury that. Next morning, right at 8:11 a.m., 3 people in Navy windbreakers stepped into the front lobby. No announcement, no press, just calm, quiet intent. They showed badges at reception. I watched from the mezzanine walkway above as one pointed to a printout and said something I couldn't hear. They were led toward ops by the HR director, who walked like someone carrying a live grenade. 10 minutes later, an all-staff email went out. Subject line, routine records review, compliance check-in. It read like nothing, just a standard request triggered by a routine inquiry, it said. Everyone in the building got real quiet after that. By 9:30, the agents were sitting in the main conference room. Door shut, blinds drawn. One of them, a guy with gray hair and mirrored glasses, had the dispatch logs open on his screen. Another was asking for maintenance sign-offs and edit trails. Slack started pinging like a fire alarm. People were deeming each other under the radar. I didn't reply to a single one. At 10:02, I got a formal email from legal. Subject, review request, documentation review, room 4C. Tone polite but clipped. No question what it was. I walked in and sat at the far end of the table. There were 2 attorneys, internal counsel, and one outside. A compliance officer was already logged into the system. The federal guy I saw earlier gave me a nod, like we were picking up a conversation that never started. The internal lawyer gestured to a laptop. We've reviewed the Q3 internal report labeled Exposure. This folder was tied to your credentials. Is that correct? I didn't flinch. Yeah, I compiled it. They opened the folder. First, the Slack message. Darren's "Let's not overheat the cabin" line. Then the exploit video. Then the file logs. Then the non-routed report I submitted weeks ago. The federal guy scrolled through everything slowly. The outside counsel finally spoke. Did you share this with anyone else internally? I shook my head once. No, I documented it. The room went dead quiet. Nobody shuffled papers. Nobody coughed. The kind of silence that hangs in the air when something heavy just landed. The internal lawyer nodded once. No smile, no fake. Appreciate your time. Just, thank you. Then they dismissed me. No dramatic exit. No questions about why I didn't say more. They already knew. I walked back to my desk, sat down, and opened my inbox. 12 new messages. I didn't open any of them. I just waited. By the end of the week, they called a special leadership meeting, not on Zoom, in person. Big conference room, full house, legal, systems, ops, compliance, 2 people from the federal team, and Darren sitting dead center like he still ran the show. He opened with his usual charm. Appreciate everyone making time on short notice. I just want to clear the air around what's clearly become a little misunderstood ticket chain. Someone across the table actually scoffed. Darren kept going. The flagged item was something we knew about. Minor back-end hiccup tied to network handoff. Low priority. It was flagged internally and logged appropriately. General counsel didn't even look up. Just clicked a remote, and the big wall screen lit up with the Slack message. His Slack message. You're making this a thing when it's nothing. Let's not overheat the cabin. Then came the audit logs. Time-stamped. My report opened by Darren. 3 minutes later, no follow-up. No patch order. No task created. Then version history, showing he greenlit the next code push with the known flaw still live. GC finally looked at him. You want to revise your statement? Darren leaned back in his chair. His face went pale, but his voice stayed smooth. Look, I might have underestimated the urgency, but this wasn't malicious. We had a junior analyst looking at it too. Wrong move. The lead compliance officer turned toward Alex. You want to walk us through your test results? Alex blinked. Sure. I mean, we did a pass on the... Pull up your test logs, the federal guy cut in. Alex hesitated, opened his laptop, clicked around. 5 entries, all basic validation checks. None of them triggered the exploit path. No network delay test. No override simulation. The federal rep raised his eyebrows. So, no replication of the actual flaw? Alex's mouth opened. Nothing came out. Then came the final nail. A senior auditor from the client team stood up. She was holding a folder in one hand, badge clipped to her belt. "We received a complaint from one of your partners in June," she said. "They reported discrepancies in aircraft availability between scheduled and grounded units." The discrepancy matched the exact logic flaw outlined in the report. She paused. "This isn't theoretical anymore." It happened, nobody spoke. Darren's mouth opened, then closed again. Legal clicked through to the usage logs. It showed a dispatch entry routed through the exploit window. Red-flagged aircraft scheduled clean using my credentials, the same one from the demo. Darren cleared his throat. "That could have been a script error. We can't know." General counsel cut him off. "You scheduled a live flight with unpatched logic after being warned, then had someone else demo the platform to a federal rep using credentials that weren't theirs." Silence again. Darren looked around the table, waiting for someone, anyone, to back him. Nobody did. GC turned to the federal agent. "Anything else?" The agent shook his head. "We're good. Everything we needed's in the audit trail." That was it. No yelling, no argument, just the quiet sound of Darren's foundation caving in, while the logs buried him line by line. I didn't say a word. Didn't need to. The truth was loud enough on its own. The next day, the office felt like a library after hours. Nobody talked above a whisper. Slack was a minefield of half-finished thoughts and awkward silence, updates with no context, project threads quietly edited in real time, like people were trying to rewrite their own tracks. Darren's name vanished from the org chart before lunch. Just gone, like he never existed. His calendar disappeared too. Someone from IT was in his office boxing up his stuff before noon. No explanation, no meeting, no goodbye. The glass-walled war room got turned into a timeline review chamber. Legal moved in with full authority. They put a big printed chart on the wall and started mapping every action, from the first flagged warning to the fake sign-offs to the override exploit. They used my documentation as the foundation. Every file I'd labeled, every log I'd archived, every damn screenshot. It was all up there, color-coded and time-stamped. Nobody questioned it. Nobody challenged a single line. Late in the afternoon, the federal rep from the earlier meeting walked past my desk, stopped, and leaned in. "You prevented a real disaster," he said. "We don't say that lightly." I didn't say anything back, just nodded. 10 minutes later, HR pinged me for a meeting. When I walked into the conference room, the same legal crew was waiting. "We're not waiting on paperwork," the GC said. "Effective immediately, you're being promoted to Director of Operational Compliance." They slid a new badge across the table, black stripe, executive clearance. Title comes with full platform access, hiring rights, and autonomy over systems-level policy. HR added, "We'll fast-track the system updates tonight. Your access goes live within the hour I took the badge." It felt heavier than it should have. By the time I got back to my desk, my inbox was blowing up. Ping, ping, ping. People I hadn't spoken to in weeks suddenly wanted to connect or talk through next steps or circle back on old ideas. I didn't reply to any of them. I just closed my laptop and left early. Let the system catch up for once. The next morning, I got the official charter, Director of Operational Compliance, full autonomy, hiring rights, direct access to both legal and IT infrastructure leads. It didn't come with a ceremony. Just a 6-line memo from the GC, signed and certified, with a CC to the board. At 10 a.m., the CEO went live on our internal stream. Stiff suit, practiced tone, reading off a teleprompter, like he barely understood half of it. "As part of our commitment to operational transparency and regulatory alignment," he said, "we've initiated an internal reorg. Darren Carpenter has stepped away from his role effective immediately. We thank him for his time. No mention of why, no mention of how, just stepped away." Then he smiled like it was a promotion. "We're pleased to announce Aaron Wells as our new Director of Operational Compliance. Aaron's deep experience and commitment to flight safety have made him the right person to lead this effort." Slack exploded. "Wait, you Aaron? Holy shit. Didn't see that coming. What did he do to get that title? Thought he was just systems?" I didn't answer a single message. Instead, I slid the new badge into the reader by the elevator, the top floor one I'd never had access to. This time, the light turned green. The executive suite was quieter than I expected. Carpeted halls, frosted glass, expensive silence. No one looked up when I walked through. I found the boardroom. Door cracked open. 4 people inside already talking numbers and damage control. I didn't knock. I stepped in, walked straight to the far seat at the table, and sat down. No one told me to leave. A few eyes flicked over, but nobody challenged it. One of the directors gave a small nod. That was all. I pulled out my tablet, opened a clean doc titled System Remediation Plan, Phase 1, and started writing. Routing rules, code-based firewall triggers, maintenance input verification, no more auto approvals, no more silence. There was no victory lap, no high-five moment, no slow clap in the hallway. I didn't need any of that. I wasn't trying to win. I was trying to fix what broke before someone got killed. I didn't feel triumphant. I felt calm. The system hadn't changed. It just finally listened. The agents came back 3 days later. Quiet again. Same windbreakers, same focused walk down the hallway. No drama, just final wrap-up. This time, they didn't ask for access. They already had it. Darren was officially separated. That was the word they used in the final HR bulletin. 2 paragraphs, no emotion. Time-stamped like a delivery receipt. No one clapped. No one said goodbye. We were in full remediation mode now. Every system flag, every rule set, every logging mechanism. I was pulled into every planning session, architecture, ops, IT, legal, all of it. No one second-guessed my input anymore. I wrote the new compliance flow myself. Clean logic, direct trigger paths, hard locks on maintenance deferrals, no more override windows, every alert traceable, every timestamp signed. When I spoke, people listened. Not because they were scared, because now they understood what silence cost. By the second week, the logs were cleaner. System edits came with notes. No mystery approvals, no ghost actions in the back end. One morning, I walked past Alex's old desk. Empty. Monitor gone. Chair pushed in. Badge reader deactivated. No message, no post. Just gone. I didn't stop walking. My badge opened every door now. Hangar access, server rooms, boardroom, even the exec elevator without a second tap. But I didn't feel powerful. I felt steady. There wasn't some big payoff waiting at the end of this. No movie moment, just clarity. Things were broken, and I put them back where they belonged. I didn't get revenge. I got the truth to surface. And this time, nobody could pretend they didn't know.